Prime Minister Modi has arrived in Balasore. That is the Prime Minister's helicopter there. That's a Mi-17 Indian Air Force helicopter with the Prime Minister that has just landed in Balasore, Odisha. These are live pictures. The Prime Minister has landed. You'll be able to see the Prime Minister in just a moment. This is very close to the site where the tragedy has taken place. So the Prime Minister has obviously landed at an airfield nearby and then taken a helicopter to the spot. The Prime Minister being received by the Railway Minister and others who are at that site in Balasore. This is very close, just meters away from the accident site. The Prime Minister has arrived. He's reached Odisha. He's about to visit the accident site. This place where you see the Prime Minister's helicopter landing is very close to the actual accident site and the Bahanagar railway station. It's an Indian Air Force Mi-17 helicopter that has transported the Prime Minister from an airfield nearby to Balasore, where the Prime Minister will now make his way towards the accident site, where he will get a personal opportunity to inspect the wreckage and get a briefing from the Railway Minister, the NDRF Chief and other officials on the ground. Remember, India Today has reported to you that a signalling issue is said to have been the cause of this terrible tragedy. The Prime Minister now gets a chance to get up close with one of India's worst rail accidents and will get a chance to take stock, issue instructions and get a full briefing on what has led to this triple train tragedy. We've shown you on India Today in detail how the collisions took place involving a stationary goods train and two superfast passengers trains banging into it one after the other. The Prime Minister arriving in an Indian Air Force Mi-17 helicopter. The area has been sanitized. This is of course a makeshift landing site where the Prime Minister has landed. There is no formal helipad here. The SPG and the area sanitization teams are out there. All of this is security protocol that must be carried out mandatorily every time the Prime Minister goes anywhere. And there's the Prime Minister. You can see him now in these pictures. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister, is in Balasore and now making his way towards the accident site. India Today continues to report from the ground. We apologize for any technical glitches in these images because, of course, when the Prime Minister arrives, there are jammers there. There are signal issues as well. But we on India Today will get you these images live here of the Prime Minister's arrival in Odisha, heading straight to the accident site to take stock of the situation. The Prime Minister is expected to possibly issue a statement of condolence as well. He has already done so on his social media, and he will likely do that in front of the cameras once he arrives at the site or at the hospital, which he will be heading to a little later. But these are images of the Prime Minister's helicopter arriving. He has already stepped out of the helicopter and is making his way now towards the accident site. We're going to stay live with these pictures and get you every aspect of this. The Prime Minister is in Balasore at this time. Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw has received the Prime Minister as he gets out of the helicopter and makes his way. There he is. There's the Prime Minister now on foot heading towards the site of the tragedy. There's a large crowd that has already gathered here. Indrajit continues to join us. He's live with us. Indro, the Prime Minister on the ground now, heading straight to the tragedy site.
Well, that's right. You know, finally landed in Balasore. He is at the site where this accident took place, so he will be going through that entire area. It's a precarious situation, and I can even imagine that for the SPG and for the people, security personnel to cordon off this entire area and make foolproof arrangements, security arrangements for the Prime Minister would actually be a nightmare because there are, crowds on both sides. It's an open area, but nonetheless, the area has now been sanitized, and for the past few hours, this process was going on. So the Prime Minister's chopper has finally landed, accompanied by the Rail Minister, and he will be going through this entire process. Of going through this area where this tragedy has taken place, and the mangled bogies are still there.
Yeah, the mangled bogies are still there. We're having a bit of an audio problem with you, Indro. If we can try and correct that in just a moment, I'll come back to you. The Prime Minister is now at the site. He gets a chance to inspect the wreckage personally while being briefed by the Railway Minister and others. This is going to come at a very, very difficult image. Remember that India's railway system has been immersed in trying to roll out more modern, faster Vande Bharat trains. This particular tragedy will come as a grave, a grave reminder of how much more work needs to be done in India's railways. Remember, the Prime Minister arrives amidst a backdrop of a lot of political attacks, including loud calls from nearly all the opposition parties for the Railway Minister to resign. There's a great deal of political anger being pointed at the Prime Minister and the Railway Minister at this time, as he makes his way to the accident site to personally inspect the wreckage and lend his solidarity with the families of those grieving. These images will be watched by millions of people across the country, all of them watching India Today's coverage of this unfolding tragedy. Nearly 300 people dead, another painful reminder of just how cheap life is really, viewer, in this country. It's something we can all agree on. 300 people dead, over 1,000 people injured. The Prime Minister with the Railway Minister making his way to the tragedy site right now. Very high security because there are large crowds that have already gathered in this area. That throws up its own challenges. And there you have it. The Prime Minister, the Union Minister for Railways, Ashwini, Vaishnaw, in the khaki shirt and trousers. You also have Union Minister Dharmendra Pradhan, who hails from Odisha as well, to the Prime Minister's right, and other officials including the Special Protection Group and security who are on duty obviously as protocol with the Prime Minister. There's the Prime Minister there being briefed by Ashwini Vaishnaw, the Railway Minister, as they make their way on foot towards the accident site. These images just before they arrive on foot at the accident site. The Prime Minister got out of his helicopter and they will be reaching the accident site where the mangled bogies of those trains still lie in painful, tragic testimony to the nearly 300 people whose lives simply evaporated in a flash of a second with these three collisions. Indro is still with us. Indro, Ashwini Vaishnaw, the Railway Minister, who is the subject of a loud opposition call for a resignation, briefing the Prime Minister right now as they make their way towards the site. And as we speak, Indro, if I'm not mistaken, JCBs, bulldozers, working overtime to remove those bogies as well. What are you hearing? What can you see? Indro, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Shiv, we can see the visuals right now of the Prime Minister in a deep conversation with Ashwini Vaishnaw, possibly trying to understand what are some of the preliminary reports of the investigation, as we have been stating that there could have been a possible signal failure. But nonetheless, it's going to be one tragic, view that the Prime Minister is going to get, given that the NDRF teams, and we've been seeing this since morning, it's anybody who sees this, it's heartbreaking, given that the NDRF is still trying to cut into some of these mangled bogies, where they believe that, some of the dead bodies are still there. I was witness to one of it this morning, and it's gut-wrenching, it's heart-wrenching. So in that sense, the Prime Minister is going to get a very, it's going to be a very poignant moment, perhaps, when he sees in the kind of situation that prevails here in Balasore with the mangled coaches over one another, and more than 250 people dead now. Very tragic incident, catastrophic, many would say.